dads in the house today? Happy Father's Day. Give all the fathers a hand. Come on, give them. I know it's Father's Day. I know we don't get as much love as Mama Day. I went by Walgreens. The section from Father's Day's card is about as big as this podium. Mama's Day is all the way down the aisle. There ain't no flower, ain't no Father's Day candy, nothing. I told my wife, just if I get some grits on Father, I'll just be happy. You know, just hook me up. But dads, we just thank God for you. And, you know, on a serious tip, those that know my story, and if you ever make the movie, I love my dad. But my dad was a murderer. My dad murdered my mother, killed her, shot her 5 times in the head when I was a little boy, and left her body in our apartment. I didn't know that was him. I saw it, saw the whole thing. And all I thought, this guy was this big man that ran out the side door. My brain didn't say at 3 years old that was my dad. 10 years later, my hero became my enemy. And I had to learn to love him. His room was right across the hall from mine. And so I understand the importance of legacy. I think we got this hooked up. We're going to be able to work this PowerPoint. And so I use it at church a lot. Hopefully we can go forward. There we go. I'm going to give you some words. You can write them down, or most of you all are smarter than me because you work in a publishing company, so you don't need to take notes. But the word I want to talk about today is legacy. Legacy is something that has come from a predecessor or the past. When I see what's happening with so many of our young people, it's not all of them, but there's a lot. There's a lot of problems. There's a reason why young people are running downtown Chicago and jumping on people. Though we're the greatest nation in the world, we have the issues that we have. There's a reason why, if you take all the wars, including the Korean War to today, we say, well, why are all these black men dying? It must be racism. It must be the wars. Well, in the wars, there's only been 32,000 black soldiers killed in all those years since Korea. But since 1976, there have been close to 300,000 blacks killed in the streets of America. I think one of the biggest reasons that there's legacy, there's just too much of a lack of it. And I look at legacy as being an advantage. The Ashanti say this, and I hope I can get this to work. And I want you to read this with me. They say, come on, there we go. They say, when you follow in the path of your father, you learn to walk like him. For so many young men and women, there is no dad. And so God has called many of us to substitute. But it's an important thing. Every step of a father's life should have purpose. I believe that. And the Bible tells many stories that reflect paternal strength. And one of those stories is in the scripture I asked you to look at, 1 Kings chapter 2, verse number 1. It deals with David and his son. David and his son. Read with me what it says on the screen. The Bible says what? When the time drew near for David to die, he gave a charge to Solomon, his son. Now, if you know the story of David and his sons and his family, and especially Solomon, you know that David left quite a bit of material wealth for his son Solomon. A lot of things, even a throne to sit on. But the final portion of his legacy was not a tangible thing. The final part he left him, it was not in the bank or in the treasury. It was instruction. The word instruction simply means a lesson, a command, some direction. And if you look through the Bible, it's not an uncommon thing. Moses left instructions. Joshua left instructions. Samuel left instructions. But David, he gave 2 sets of speeches. He had a public speech for everybody else and a private speech for his son. Can I tell you one of the biggest issues that young, urban, African-American kids have is they've never had their fathers whisper in their ears some final instructions. There are kids that come to my church, and I don't think they really are into preaching all that much, but they just love the fact that we love on them like we do. Just met a kid this week named DeAndre. And DeAndre was kicked out of a school here in the inner city of Chicago, and they gave him community service, and he asked his teacher, could you give me community service? The judge was with him, and she said, your community service from February to June is come to my church every Sunday and be part of a group called the Society of Gentlemen. We have a group from 12 to 19 years old, and their mentors are 21 to 31-year-old college-trained, saved kids from our guys from our church, because they all listen to the same music. They're just a little bit older. He told me this past Sunday, my time is up, but I don't want to go nowhere. Can I stay in your church? Now, he doesn't look anything like our church kids. He's got the twisties. He got a tattoo on his neck that says something. I can't read. I'm really trying to like, what does that say, man? But anyway, some of y'all know kids like that, right? David says to his son in 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 2, he says, now, son, the time has come. I'm about to go the way of all the earth. In other words, the effects of time are inevitable. How many of you here are older than 26? Good. So you can relate. There are some things that are happening to you that are inevitable. Before you hit 26, you always want to know, people know how I'm almost 22. I'm almost 21. When you hit past 26, you say, I just made 27. It's when things switch. As much as I work out, I've just lost 24 pounds just since I saw you last, Jeff, and I've kind of remade myself. I did it not to be sharp. I did it so they wouldn't have to replace both my kneecaps. So I played football. So both my kneecaps are twisted sideways. So the weight. As you get older, you lose hair. This is not a fashion statement. This is the result of pastoring black people for 10.5 years. I remember when I was younger, I would just get up in the morning. How many of you, have you had that happen to you, that first time it happened to you, when you go to get out of the bed, and you have to stop and think about it? Anybody? Yeah. Come on, guys. You only got 20 minutes with me. It's inevitable. I remember one time, the first time I had, my wife asked me, what are you doing? I was sitting on the side of the bed. I sat there for like 8.5 minutes. And she said, well, I said, I'm planning. I'm going to see if it's really worth going to the bathroom or not. If birthdays are inevitable. The Bible said the time drew near for David to die. He was no longer this shepherd. He was no longer the creative psalmist. He was no longer the great warrior. But the one thing he still was, he had purpose in it. We spend so much time trying to stay what we were, but purpose is always in us. Sylvia Robinson said this. She said, some think it's holding on that makes one strong, but sometimes it's letting go. Does anyone here know what I mean by sometimes you got to let go, even when it comes to the kids? Solomon, when you look at him, and I know something about being a successor. I'm writing a book now called, I don't know if someone already got the title yet. It's called The Joshua Project. It has something to do with what we're doing out in Linwood. This 8.5-year journey of crossing the Jordan, this whole idea of taking a few people and owning themselves. If you've ever been down Joel Road, it's closed off now. You can't get, because all the construction, you can't get on Joel Road. There's 75 acres that God gave to us 8 years ago, because he gave us a vision first, and we bought all that land. We bought it by a miracle. I'll tell you this, the easiest part about crossing the Jordan is the Red Sea party. The Jordan party. It's just easy. Buying all that land for $1 million, when it was worth about $14 million, was the easiest part. Getting people to understand that God wants you to own yourself is the most difficult. Being the successor of these great warriors, the Wyatts and all these people, it's difficult. Dr. King and his wife used to be in our church all the time before I was there, before they died. They were our pastor's friends. And so following that is difficult. You all are part of that because you're following. Jeff is following, Dr. Banks. Some of you are following other people, whether in your church or your family, whatever else. Hope I'm making sense to somebody today. Solomon was not the choice that most folks would have made. David was a warrior. Solomon was a thinker. Solomon had no muscles. He was a techie. He wore glasses because he needed to, not because they looked cute. T.D. Jakes said this. He said, there's no success without a successor. And so what he does on his deathbed, he is dying. He's about to die. And it's inevitable. He's taking those breaths. Being in ministry almost all these years, these more than 3 decades, I've had the great blessing and horrible burden of watching some of the saints go home. And though it is a wonderful honor, it's hard to... It's not like on the movies. There's no music in the background. But they want to whisper some things. This is what... A year ago, my father-in-law, who was a great man of God, 2 days before he died, he grabbed my hand and would not let go. The only thing strong in him was from his wrist down and his neck up. Everything else was dead. Cancer had eaten him all up. and he told me a prophecy about my wife, and our ministry. And to this day, everything he said, I don't know what they see when they die. I think they see things that we don't understand. He grabbed Solomon and he gives him a 3-part legacy. If you have a pencil, you might want to write these 3 things down. I'll say them in 14 minutes. There's nothing that he tells him about money. He never says, I love you. He does not get emotional. He never says, I'm sorry. Because by the time you get to this part, all that should be said. He doesn't waste time on personalities or who don't like you. He says, these are the 3 things you're going to need to be successful. Let me get them to you real quick. I'm sure this is going to work. The first thing he said, be strong. What is strength? Strength is not something that's not easily broken. It has the ability to do or endure, or the power to resist attack. He said, son, you have a throne. You have some guys going to be walking with you. You have all the money you'll ever need. You'll be popular. But the number one thing you're going to have to be is strong. He said, I'm about to go the way of all the earth. He said, so be strong. Notice, saints, he does not say get strong. He calls out of his son what's already in his son. He says, be strong. The reason why some of you all have made it as far as you have, even though you're long shots, is because there's a strength in you that you did not get in school. He didn't say be smart, he said be strong. Here the warrior encourages the thinker to use the strength inside of him. In my last 12 minutes, I want to encourage you, and even you to encourage your children, that every life encounters some heavy lifting. Have you lived long enough to know that everything ain't easy? I use ain't. I know that's not right. Is anybody here lived long enough? Life is not what they told you in college. Fill out your resume, they'll bring you in. No, they don't. You will have perfect children, and everybody will like you. And I believe this. I believe the success of our children is determined by their strength. And by we as parents and aunties and uncles and big brothers and big sisters, and especially dads, calling that strength out of him. I expect my 5 kids to be strong. Now, can I be honest? I'm not on TV. And the reason why I'm not on WMVI right now or Moody Radio, because they want me on there every other week, is because right now I'm in a place in my life where you really don't want to hear everything I think. You really don't. Oh, come on, Mark loves me. You're great for ratings, coast to coast. I say, yeah, Doc, but there are some things that Christians are doing right now that ain't Christian. And it's going to take this generation breathing on the next generation to call the strength out of them. He's dying. He has death on his breath. He is no longer this strong guy with a harp. He can't sing any more songs. He can only whisper a few words. He doesn't waste it. So he says to his son, you be strong. Girl, be strong. Whether you get married or not, be strong. Whether people like you or not, the number one thing you must call out of your children is strength. Number 2. Y'all still with me in church? Yeah. Be responsible. He says, be responsible. What is responsible? Be able to fulfill your obligations. Whatever you sign up for, whatever you sign that you're going to pay on, unless something happens beyond your control, be responsible. I'm in the middle of a series right now in church called Knowing God. We're talking about the gift of knowledge. The thing that separates us from everything in nature is that we have the ability to know. Jesus said, learn of me. Learn of me. Grow in grace and in the knowledge of. The reality is we are responsible for everything that we know. So he tells his son, be responsible. 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 2. He said, I'm about to go the way of all the earth, so be strong and show yourself a man. He said, I'm telling you what you need to do. You cannot live on my reputation. You will sit on my throne, but you will sit on it different. And the honeymoon only lasts, if anybody here is married, you know the honeymoon only lasts just so long. They will not always be throwing rice, and there's not enough brooms to jump over. And the reality is, you got to make your own marriage. In America, we're great at weddings. We're not good at marriage. So David tells his son that it takes more than a crown to be a king. It takes more than the Bible to be a Christian, or a cross around your neck, or a title of a bishop or an archbishop or whatever else. Titles don't make it. He says, now show yourself a man. In other words, write down the word show. The word show means a demonstration, a demonstrative display, an outward appearance. After the inauguration, people are going to try to figure out who you are. People will never respect you until they figure out who you really are. Some of y'all sitting right there still trying to figure me out. Because that's what we do in America. We judge everybody. Everybody's got a talk show or an opinion. We tweet stuff we have no idea what we're tweeting and twitting and tooting and whatever. I don't do all that. I do have an email address and I do text sometimes, but I believe there's a reason why you put a letter in an envelope. Some stuff got to be secret. You don't even know what color socks I got on. He said, be responsible, son. That's what dads tell. There's not a lot of emotion in this last speech to his son, because death takes care of itself. I love what William Thackeray says about making your name. He said, I would rather make my name than inherit my name. I'd rather make my name than inherit my name. Doc was talking earlier about cool names. And January didn't become a cool name until I was a grown man. It was a source of fighting all through my life. January, February, March, April, May. I'm going to knock you into December. It did not become a cool name until I started writing for HarperCollins. It did not become a cool name until certain things happened in my life, in my ministry, living in integrity. And UMI's name has been built on what you all do, the integrity of the company. I want to thank y'all for this latest Vacation Bible School packet, because our kids are excited. About 100 kids already signed up for VBS, and they're absolutely excited. Even in your work here, remember, we all have a responsibility to be responsible. The root word is response. How do you respond to the way things are going? I love what Josiah Stamp says about responsibility. Maybe you can see this on the screen. I'm not sure if it shows up behind me. Read it. It says what? It is easy to dodge our responsibilities, but we cannot dodge the consequences of dodging our responsibilities. And part of that is parenting. Being a dad, being a grandpa. As my grandkids call Pawpaw. That's an old Bible. I got 6 now. I told the kids, please stop having babies. Christmas is way too expensive. Number 3, the last one. Be strong, be responsible. Number last, respect the requirements. After that, he dies. He says, son, everything else is set up, but there are some things that you're going to have to do. And one thing you have to understand is that there are some requirements. To require means to demand something as essential, something that's just absolutely necessary. He said, observe what the Lord your God requires, the requirements. He said, be strong. He tells him, he says, you're going to have to understand that the strength is in you. And then finally he gets to this last thing. He says, there are requirements. This is not automatic. The VBS does not write itself. The award you just won, Ed, for the website, it didn't design itself. When other people were sleeping, you were designing, you were thinking. You got up in the middle of the night and said, ooh, that'd be great. America is cool with giving a C. That's why we're number 17 in the industrialized nations in math, when we used to be number 1. We're number 22 in science, when we used to be number 1 or 2. Because everybody wants to be an entertainer, but nobody wants to think. America the beautiful, America the great. We won't be great if we still allow C to be the standard. The thing that, Jeff, that I really like, and I'll skip all the rest because I know only have a couple minutes. He tells his son, he says, walk in his ways. One of the last things he said, son, don't walk like me. Walk in his ways. My success came from mirroring God. I have my own style. You have your own style, my brother. But there is something about the ways of God. The word walk, I love it. because it speaks of progress. I tell people when you stop learning, you get old automatically. There are some young people at 80 and some old people at 17. The word walk means to follow a course of action or a way of life. He says to his son, you never want to stop going forward. In your marriage, in your relationships. The reason why a lot of marriages are stale in Chicago is because folks stop going forward. Brothers forgot you rap to her. I ain't talking about like hip hop rap. I'm talking about, anybody old enough to remember what rap is? Hi, it's me. How you doing? Really? Really means to a woman, oh, he cares. We're different, fathers, than mothers. I always tell the young folks when I get married, I said, listen, you got to worry about taking all your clothes off. Stop trying to look like that. Because a man's body, woman's body different. I shouldn't say this in church, but it's true. A woman's body responds. A man's body remembers. Bring flowers home. We stop being husbands. We stop being romantic. I'm sorry. Walk. Somebody say walk. Walk. David points his son out of his bedside, out of his death scene, and commands him to start thinking about going forward. Even before he dies, he said, look, this is going to be a tough funeral for you, but you got to start thinking about a month from now. He said, I want you to start thinking forward right now. And why? Why would he do that? Because the last portion of that scripture in verse 3 makes all the sense. He said, so that you may prosper in all you do and wherever you go. He never tells him what to do. He just says, here's the way you prosper. Because the things that my son does, my son works for TNT. He's into TV. He's working for He's worked for the Atlanta Hawks, and when he left the Hawks, Turner and them moved him to TNT. He's been there 10 years. He loves it. He said, Dad, I never want to be a preacher. I said, I don't want to be one either. But when he told me that when he was 14, the 3 years he was in college before senior year, every summer I got him an internship with a movie company or a TV company because I knew what his dreams were. He didn't dress like me. He didn't act like me. But I'm not like my father. I've never hit a woman. Wherever you go. Wherever you go. The word prosper simply means to have insight that results in success. It's not like it is on TV, and I'm not going to say anything because I might offend somebody else. But one of the most damnable things about being a preacher in America is we treat God like an American. Treat him like an ATM machine. And we fool you all, and we con people into thinking if you do this, God's going to give you all this money, you're going to have all these houses, you work, you make money, you pay the note. That's how you do that, right? But prosperity is more than the clothes you wear. It's having insight that results in success. Now, as I leave, and I hope I've said something that encouraged dads, there's a saying that they say in Rwanda. It's simple. It says you can outdistance that which is running after you, but not what is running inside of you. One of the most difficult things about pastoring is I know that a lot of folks that I deal with, their biggest issue is not folks, because it's easy to switch churches, and you got to have thick skin. But it's not easy to run from what you're dealing with inside your heart all the time. But this generation, Jeff, I find it kind of interesting because what God showed me that I could help father kids that weren't even my kids. When I was in Colorado, before I was at Compassion, I used to do a program with one of the high schools, the urban high schools, called Common Ground. They said there's a separate between church and state, but if schools get desperate enough, they don't care if you bring a cross into the schools, as long as they get the kids from acting crazy. This school was 60% black, mostly poor, and the black children's grades were horrible, and many of them didn't have dads, and so myself and a guy named Mark Pollard, we put together a program, and we asked the principal, I said, well, if you just give us a room, an hour and 15 minutes every week on a Thursday, and we'll make announcements, maybe some of the young kids will come and sit in the room with us, and we can talk to them about life and do all that kind of stuff. We ain't going to preach to them, but we're going to give them some biblical principles on how to be a man, how to be a woman, blah, blah, blah. And we these black guys, we dress like GQ, yeah. We wanted 12 guys. The first day we got 83. 83 young people showed up in that room and stayed in that room for 6 months. Every Thursday, between 75 and 85 kids would skip lunch to sit in the room to hear two guys talk about life. And I never forget Mr. Banks. What really showed me what we were doing was valuable is one day we had an icebreaker. And we said, here's what we're going to do. First guys in the first row, tell us if you can go any place in the world, where would you go? China, blah, blah, blah. The guy on the end said, Mr. J, you know where I'd like to go? I've always wanted to go to Colorado Springs. I mean, in Denver. Peep the picture now. It's not like, Colorado Springs is, so what, 74 miles that way, man. I found out he was a senior in high school. He'd only been out of his neighborhood twice. Right. And that was to go downtown Denver. No one had ever taken him out of that zip code but twice. So Colorado Springs to him was the other side of the world. Have you ever had God speak to you and you say something silly before you had time to think about it? I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take everybody in this room that makes 2.5 or greater on a report card on a trip around the country for 8 days. My partner never said, we are. Yeah, man, we want you to see colleges and see culture, and all you have to do is come up, God put in my mind, $100. You bring $100 and a good report card. Well, what happened was a third of them were eliminated within 24 hours because their parents said, there ain't no way in the world that Negro is going to do that. It's a con. They didn't call me Negro, but we in church. Cut the numbers down to 40-something. But I believe God. So some of you have done it before. I called colleges in Oklahoma, called Tuskegee, called schools in Atlanta, called DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana, where Dan Quayle went to school. And I said, I got 50 kids, high school kids, juniors and seniors, and a few sophomores. I want to bring them to see you. What can you do for me? Worked out a deal with every university that we got every dorm room free and every meal free. Okay. I still need the cruiser, $3,000. And there were some hotels we needed in Atlanta because the schools there wouldn't cooperate. We were there in 3 days. So I need about $3,900. I raised some of it, but I was still $3,000 short. 4 days before I had to leave, I didn't tell the kids. I had to go to a program like this. It was a little small church. I didn't want to go preach at that small church. Preachers like engagements, but I didn't want to go. And I remember going anyway, and I gave my testimony, I preached a little bit, and I talked about the kids the last 5 minutes, and I sat down, and as I was leaving, this guy taps me on the shoulder from way in the back, white gentleman, and says, I love that story. You need $3,000? I'll tell you what my company's going to do. He wrote me a check for $1,500. But I'm still $1,500 short. The next morning I got up, I told my wife, and I called our partners. I said, still need $1,500. The phone rang at 10 o'clock and said, Mr. January, this is Mr. Kowalski. I said, oh, the check's going to bounce. I knew it. I knew it. He said, if I had been obedient to God, I'd have given you $3,000 last night. But I just didn't think I had enough money. I didn't want to do that. I got to work today, and there was $45,000 on my desk from a contract that we thought we had lost. Would you please come by the office and pick up $3,000? So all the kids got on the bus, and we drove to Oklahoma, and we went to ORU. We had a great time there 2 days. And then overnight, we drove to Tuskegee the second night, and we spent time there. One of the kids got a scholarship on the basketball team there because we played a pickup game in the parking lot with some of the basketball players from their varsity, and my boys from the ghetto beat them. The coach saw it and said, you want a full ride? Please don't ignore what God tells you to do. Don't wait on the money. When you have the vision. We get to Atlanta, and I have to tell you, as I sit down, there was one kid that should have never got on the bus. His name was Andre. But for some reason, Lord, Andre was 6'4", very handsome, from Harlem, New York. They moved him to Colorado because they were going to arrest him or kill him because he was a gangbanger. He was crazy. But there was something in him, and he never got to a 2.5, not his junior year. His junior year there, he was like 2.1. But that was great for Andre because he was actually going to class. He never could play basketball full season because he was always ineligible because he was just a knucklehead. But there was something in him. And so Alabama, Oklahoma, they're doing a lot for him. We're in Atlanta. We go to Spelman. We go to Morehouse. We see all the stuff. We go to the underground. We kick it. We have grits and chicken and all that and pancakes and waffles. And our last day was at the King Center. And that was before Coretta died. So this was about 20 years ago. And we're getting off the bus. And by that time, it's been 5 days. We still have 4 days, 3.5 days to go. I'm tired already. So the kids get off. And we're going to do a tour in the center. And they walk over, because his crypt, Dr. King's crypt, if you've been there, it's right in the street by the pool thing. That's his body in there. And so the kids get out and they're going, taking pictures. And I see this jockeying going on by the pool. I'm thinking, oh. And I saw people running and I said, okay, Andre is in a fight. I knew it. I said, God gave us 4 days apiece. The Negro done jumped on somebody down here, right by Dr. King's, free at last sign. And I get over and I'm pushing through the crowd. I'm getting everybody. And here's Andre. Andre is sitting at the pool. The grave is behind him. And Andre is sitting here, and they're patting him on the back and rubbing his head, and his shoulders are just jumping. And I'm looking at him, I'm trying to figure what's wrong. I know what's wrong with him. His tears are coming, and this is real crying because there's stuff coming out of his nose. Because Dre, he sagged before sagging was in. Dre was a straight-up gangster. But he's only 17 years old. Mom and dad he never knew his daddy. Didn't know him. And I go up and said, man, hey, what's wrong with you? And he's shaking his head. Jeff, this happened. Matter of fact, when I think about it, I still cry 20-something years later. I didn't believe it. I'm like, you didn't believe what? I believe it. He's crying. And he points back. He said, I did not believe there was a real Martin Luther King. He said, I never thought he was real. I thought they made him up. He said, Mr. January, I can still hear him say it. He said, Mr. January, man, he was real. It changed him so much that he went back to school in the fall. His entire senior year, he never came to school without a shirt and tie. And when the police, they stopped him one time, he had a record. So they had his picture up, and they took me to see it. I remember the first time they stopped him, they said, hey, nigga. That's what he called Trey. Why you out here like that? What you pulling now? He had a little sports jacket. He didn't have a lot of money, but he wear a tie every day. And he said, sir, I'm not a nigga. He said, my name is Andre January, and they told me who I am. Andre grades got the 3-point. He got a scholarship to Houston, became a business major. All because of one lesson. A dead man calls out. Truth calls out to us. You guys are responsible for truth. I'm hoping that this VBS season, because half of that 112 kids that are signed up don't go to our church. They're just kids from the hood. And there's nothing around my church for them to do. I want to thank you for this, fathers and mothers alike. I know it took a little longer than I planned. But the reality is that legacy is what this is about. That's what this is about. God bless you all.